Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update. Join the only official Telegram channel of RAU'S IAS Study Circle to get relevant material and important updates.
Hello everyone and welcome to Daily News Simplified, your one-stop solution to detailed analysis of current affairs which are published in the daily edition of the Hindu newspaper. Articles dated 20th of May 2022 are listed on your screen, and the timestamping for these articles is already given in the description box. So let us begin with the first article for the day. This article appeared on page 1st and page 14, that is the business page. The article talks about the recent judgment given by the Supreme Court, where it has observed that both center and the state have equal powers to make laws which are related to the goods and service tax. Now, context of the article says that Supreme Court has held that union and the state legislations, that is union parliament and the state legislations, will have equal, simultaneous and unique power to make laws related to the goods and service tax. Now, you must be well aware that the goods and service tax legislation was passed in 2016, and since 2017 we are having a regular goods and service tax regime in the country. As it is an indirect tax regime, both center and the state have equal participation towards its determination. Income tax, corporate tax are the form of direct taxation on which the power of the center remains over and above the state government. Now, this decision may have different repercussions. So what we will do from the perspective of UPSC, this topic is important under General Studies paper 2, as well as some of the topics may also be asked in the prelim examination. So we will go through the entire length and breadth of this issue. We'll look into the possible causes behind why Supreme Court has taken such a stance, what are the constitutional provisions in this regard, and how these constitutional provisions along with the Supreme Court judgment will impact the GST regime in the future. We will also discuss some of the basic tenets of goods and service tax which is being practiced across India. Now, going from the background, what happened previously? Earlier, a petition was filed in Gujarat High Court, and it says that center government should not charge IGST, that is interstate goods and service tax, on ocean freight from Indian importer. Now, what was happening? Please understand. Importers who are getting goods from outside India. Now, when these goods were entering, let's say they are entering on the coastal areas of Gujarat through ports or through seaports. So when these products were entering India, instead of charging the custom duties of various forms, government of center was charging the interstate goods and service tax. Now, the product is not interstate. The product is international at its standard. The goods were imported between different nations and not India's different state. That is the reason why this petition was filed. Now, going by the legal meaning of this petition, Supreme Court has made the following observation. First of all, Supreme Court has given the highest priority to the cooperative federalism, which is the backbone of goods and service tax and its distribution between center and the state. And Supreme Court has argued that cooperative federalism is important for the well-being and smooth functioning of Indian democracy. They have also made statement clear that GST orders given by the GST Council are only recommendatory in nature. So we will also understand what GST Council is all about. So the orders which are given by the GST Council are only recommendatory in nature as observed by the Supreme Court, and they only have the persuasive value. Whether a particular state pursue or agree with the recommendation of the GST or not, it's totally depend on its own choice. As per the GST legislation, union and the state government have conferred the equal power with respect to what they will act towards the GST. For instance, Article 246A of the Indian Constitution gives states equal power to make laws with respect to the GST. Then this is the statement which was repeated by the Supreme Court also. Now, this article proves that state can make laws on GST. So if tomorrow, let's say, Gujarat wants to make a law with respect to the importers or the imported goods, and the application of various forms of GST over it, they can easily do that. And center cannot challenge given the cooperative federalism which is being practiced under the GST regime. The another statement which was highlighted by the Supreme Court was Article 279A, which provides for the constitution of GST Council in the Constitution. So GST Council in India is a constitutional body which is being mentioned and clearly defined in the Constitution. And the functioning of the GST Council clearly proves that they are not actually dependent on each other. Who? States and the center. So states and the center can function on their own, bringing their own norms. So for instance, there is a central GST on which the rules can be created by the center. When we talk about the state GST, so states can also create their own respective rules. However, the overall taxation rate will remain the same. Now let us understand this through an example. Assume that a product ₹100 is now being charged at 12% of the taxation. Now according to the current status, this 12% will be distributed between the center in 6% as center GST and another 6% to the state GST. Now both of these entities will collect the taxation together and will distribute them equally. However, when it comes to the rules of both these parties, the rules can be created by center also and can also be created by the state. However, the mechanism which is adopted in the making of these rules depend on the popular consensus given by the GST Council. So, according to the Supreme Court, center cannot impose its own rules and regulations on the state as it goes against the functioning of cooperative federalism. Now, the quote that was highlighted by the Supreme Court in its statement says that constituent units of federal polity, that is states in India's example, checks the exercise of the power of one another to prevent one group from exercising dominant power of the other. Now this is a good statement. You can definitely utilize this statement for your mains examination and even in your essay paper. Now let us go into the details of what Article 246A has to say. Now according to this article, clause 1, the legislation of every state in India have the power to make laws with respect to goods and services tax imposed by the union or by the state itself. So as we have said, if the taxation of 12% is implemented, then state can also make rules on that. The second clause of this article says that Parliament has exclusive power to make laws with respect to goods and service tax where the supply of goods or of services, that is both goods and services, or even both, have taken place the course of interstate trade or commerce. Now, assume this is your Andhra Pradesh and Andhra Pradesh is sharing border with, let's say, Telangana. Now, if a good is going from Andhra Pradesh to Telangana, then there will be interstate goods and service taxation or integrated GST. Now, when a good is coming from, let's say, United Kingdom or USA to Andhra Pradesh, then it becomes a matter of concern because now this is not an interstate, it is international goods and service transaction. That is the concern which was highlighted by Gujarat also, and Gujarat argued that in the second case, states should be provided upper hand to make their own respective laws for the collection of goods and service tax. Now, the provision of this article shall, in respect to the GST, refer to the clause 5 of Article 279A, take effect from the date recommended by the Goods and Service Tax Council. Now, it simply means that whatever we have highlighted in the above two clause will be implemented on the recommendation of Goods and Service Tax Council as per Article 279A. So government has to create a GST council in order to implement the above two provisions of Article 246A. Now please note that this article of 246A was not there in the original constitution. It was implemented through 101st Amendment Act 2016, which came into force on 16th of September 2016. Now let us go into the Article 279A, which also was used by the Supreme Court to make its judgment more substantive. Now, as per this article, the amendment of the Constitution was conducted, that is under 2016 101st Amendment, and a separate body or an organization was created with the name GST Council. So, from where do we get about GST Council? Article 279A, and it says that it will be a joint forum or a platform where center and the state will consist of the following member: Union Finance Minister, who will act as a chairperson. So in current perspective, it will be Nirmala Sitharaman. Apart from her, there will be two other section of minister: Union Member of State, who will be in charge of revenue and finance, and he will act as an important member. Along with this, there will be the finance ministers, or if not, a minister nominated by each state government be a member. So there will be three group of people. This is your person number 1, this is your person number 2, and these will be n number depending on the number of state. So all these three units will together make the GST Council, and they will function on the consensus basis. That is, every decision which is being floated on the floor of GST Council will be decided through the majority principle. As per Article 279A Clause 4, the GST Council will make a recommendation. Now this is a constitutional provision, and this constitutional provision is not binding. So this is the basic clause which the Supreme Court has utilized to make a statement in favor of the Gujarat High Court. So the advice given by the council is completely recommendatory in its nature, and it does not provide the master kind of attitude to the union government to dictate the state on terms of different sections of the GST. So the recommendation of GST Council will depend on, or will be based on, different kinds of goods and services that should be included or that should be exempted from the GST, some of the model GST laws, principles that govern the place of supply, threshold limit, GST rates, and other important price bands. It will also focus on the special rates of raising the additional resources for natural calamities, disasters, special provisions on certain states, for example, the compensation under the GST to the loss-making states. So all these will be recommended by this council, which is created under Article 279A. Now I'll repeat that it is a constitutional provision practiced by the constitutional body. However, it is not binding on its constituent members. Now, what is the next perspective? Now, for businesses, goods importer will get some relief, as they will no longer be liable to pay the GST on the ocean freight charges and can easily seek refund for their past payments which they have paid. Now, this payment will be made by the union government, as they were the major entity for collecting these kind of revenues. Now, for center and the state, what would be the implication? The first one will be, as stated by the Finance Ministry, that Supreme Court order only reiterates the spirit in which the GST Council is functioning. So as per the Finance Ministry, nothing new has been done. Finance Ministry has just said the Supreme Court has made the clarification that the recommendation of the GST Council remains more or less advisory in nature without any binding, and said that council may be called for a separate meeting to go into and discuss the Supreme Court's verdict. Now, let us understand what are the other implications. Let us assume that if GST Council functions under the common consensus, that is already a set norm, then how can some state take their own course of action? For instance, so if we are saying that GST Council is functioning on the majority principle. Now, as majority principle is already functioning, how can some state who have already agreed on a specific agenda in the meeting, how can they come back with their own provisions? Now, the moment they agree on a particular thing in the majority principle, they should not deny the same while functioning at their own state level. Now, this creates the issue. The second implication would be that if recommendation of GST Council is not adhered, it might create a wrong precedent on the cooperative federalism. Now, as we have seen in the case of Gujarat, now Gujarat has raised the voice. The same might be repeated by the others also. This will create a cascading effect, and one state after the other will keep on rejecting the provisions which have been made after the consensus in the GST Council. It can also create a long-term hurdle to bring petroleum and its product as well as the alcohol and other spirits under the GST ambit. The more issue will be there, the more delay will be observed in this regard. Now, with the detailed discussion of the news article, let us also revise for the upcoming prelim examination the basics of GST.
So, what is GST or what GST is all about? GST is a unified and all India. These are the two keywords. Unified simply means that there is just one taxation across the nation. Take this for example. You want to go in a party in a fancy restaurant. It is a restaurant which is air conditioned. The taxation on the air conditioned restaurant, let's say, is 18%. So the GST charged on the services and the food you eat is 18%. Now, whether this restaurant is situated in Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, or maybe in northeastern states does not matter. If it is 18%, it is unified and it will be 18% across the nation. GST is an indirect tax. It simply means the payer of the taxation or the payer of the tax is not the actual person who is bearing the burden. The one on whom the tax is imposed can shift it to the other. Take for example, the product which you are buying in the market and the tax you are paying. The burden of the tax is on you and not the seller or the shopkeeper. Shopkeeper has already paid the tax and he has shifted the burden of the tax on you. Why you? Because you are actually consuming the product. The shopkeeper is not consuming the product, so he will not bear any kind of burden. So, indirect tax simply means when there is a shift in the taxation and the burden to the final consumer. That is the indirect tax. GST was imposed in July 2017 after a very long deliberations and conversations in the Parliament of India. As it is a part of the federal system and it is also part of the economic matter including the taxation, it was undertaken through a constitutional amendment and multiple amendments were included and a separate GST Act was passed. GST is a comprehensive, multi-stage, destination-based tax that is levied on every value addition. Now, what is value addition? Let us understand through the whiteboard. Now, what is value addition? Value addition simply means when you are adding a separate value, and value here means monetary value, not the physical value. When you add a certain value to a product and you charges extra money over it, that is known as the value addition. Assume that you are a manufacturer and you make a product rupees 100. All right. Now, when you make this product rupee 100, the cost of production in manufacturing this 100 rupee was also 100. So if you sell this product at this price, what you are going to gain? Zero. Your profit will be zero. So what you will do, you will add a certain margin to it. What that margin is? That margin is your hard work which you have paid in manufacturing this product. The cost which you have incurred include the cost of electricity, labor, raw material, or could be anything extra. However, you have already added your margin into it and together this you will make out a price, let's say 120 rupees. This extra 20 is nothing but the value addition in the product. This 20 rupees is the price which you have added in the product in order to make it a more value added good. If we take the example of bread, which is the very classic example, if you are running a bakery and you have bought flour, wheat flour, you have labor, you have all the machineries, you have that burner and everything else. Now what you have done, combining all those things, you have made out a product which is a bread. So what you have done, you have transported raw material from a wheat flour to a bread. That means you have added something extra to it. And that something extra will add up into the price as well. So government will not take price or the taxation on this. They will take the taxation on the value addition of 20 rupees. So after that, at every stage, including the transportation, wholesaler, retailer, and consumer. So at every stage, there will be a kind of value addition. So this 100 rupees will never be counted, only the value addition at every different stages will be counted. And this value addition will be undertaken for your final determination of the GST. Now, coming back to the article, the GST has removed the cascading effect. Now, what is cascading effect? It is nothing but the removal of multiple counting or double counting of the same product. Now, understand the cascading effect in the following example. Assume that the manufacturer has cost a product 100 rupees. The wholesaler has cost the same product as 130, the retailer at 150, and the final price of the product turn out to be 160 in the market. Now, at every stage, you can see that there is addition of some kind of value to the actual price. So the earlier regime was the VAT or value added tax, and that tax was actually imposed on the final price. And this final price actually included the intermediary prices as well. So what government has done through the GST, that they have reduced or they have removed the cascading effect of multiple counting of the same product, and now what they have done, they are just counting the value addition, and the tax is imposed on the value addition to a product. Now you can see in this example that the difference between both these value is evident, and that is the reason why GST is assumed to be much more simpler than the value added tax. The multi-stage under GST simply means an item goes through multiple change of hands, as I said, from manufacturer to the wholesaler to the retailer, then to the consumer, and along its supply chain. So where it happens, the entire process goes on under the supply chain. These stages include the purchase of raw material, the production or the manufacture of product, warehousing of the finished good, which also include the transportation cost, selling to the wholesaler, sale to the product to the retailer, the shopkeeper, which where you visit, you do not buy product from the wholesaler, you buy it from the retailers, and finally selling to the end consumer. Now all of these stages are called the multi-stage under the GST. So the current GST is levied on all these stages, but only on the value addition and not the cost. As you can see, the GST is levied on the value addition, that is only the monetary value, not the actual addition in the cost. So this monetary value is added at each stage to achieve the final sale to the end consumer, as we have seen here at the 60. And finally, there is another keyword which is known as destination based tax. Destination based tax simply means the tax will be imposed where the final consumption of the good is taking place. It is also known as consumption based tax. I have also listed down an example. Consider this, that the goods are manufactured in Maharashtra and sold to the final consumer in Karnataka. Since goods and service tax is levied at the point of consumption, the entire tax revenue will go to Karnataka and not Maharashtra. Now, why this happens? Because ultimately, who is benefiting? The beneficiary in this case are the consumers of Karnataka. So, the consumer of Karnataka are beneficiaries, then why not the government of Karnataka take the tax? Take the reverse example. If the same thing is happening and people of Karnataka are consuming the goods, but the taxation money is going in the Maharashtra, so who will benefit? The producer of Maharashtra, the government of Maharashtra, and who will lose? The consumers and the government of Karnataka. And this is the reason why it is a destination or the consumption based taxation. Going by the components of GST. Well, there are three basic components of GST: CGST, SGST, and IGST. It is nothing but central, state, and integrated. Now, what is central GST? It is a tax collected by central government on the intra-state sale. Example, transaction happening in Maharashtra. The second is the tax collected by the state government on intra-state. The keyword here is intra or within the state. Example, the transaction happening within Maharashtra. So both first and the second are the same. Position is same, example is same, only the tax collecting agency is different. On the other hand, the integrated GST is a tax collected by the central government. Now this is the keyword. So IGST is collected by the central government from an interstate. Now interstate means between the state. As we have seen the example of Maharashtra and Karnataka, here you can also see the example of Maharashtra and Tamil Nadu. The tax structure under the new GST is as follows. When a product is sold within a particular state, now what does the new regime says? The new regime says that there will be two authorities or two kind of tax, that is CGST and SGST. What was the earlier stance? Earlier stance was value added tax and the central excise or service tax. Now, what is the current distribution model? The revenue will be shared equally between the center and the state. So, if a car is manufactured in the state of Haryana, the GST on that car will be shared between government of Haryana and the government of India. On the other hand, when there is a sale to the another state, what is the current status? It will be covered under integrated GST. Earlier, the instance was that central sales tax and excise together were taken. Now, how the revenue is distributed? There will be only one type of tax, that is the central, because central is the only authority which is covering up the tax in this case. So, central will distribute or share the IGST revenue based on the destination of that good. So if good is arriving to Karnataka, central government will cover the taxation and will share it with the state of Karnataka. Following are the taxes which are replaced by GST. Although we have covered this on multiple instances in the previous video also, so I am just going to take up as a revision. First is the central excise duty. What is excise duty? Excise duty is the tax which is imposed on a product when it leaves the production unit. So when the product comes out of a factory, the first taxation imposed on that product is the excise or the excise duty. Then there are duties of excise, then there are additional duties on excise, additional duties of customs. Custom is nothing but export and import duties. Then there is special additional duty of custom. We have cess, we have state VAT, which are also under the GST now. We have central sales tax, we have purchase tax, we have luxury tax, entertainment tax, entry tax, taxes on advertisements, and taxes on lottery, betting, and gambling. All these are now replaced by the GST. Then comes the another bouncer. I would say bouncer because these are the areas where UPSC can play with you in order to get you confused. Now, these are the goods and services which are not covered under the GST. Take for example, the voluntary services or the services given by the NGOs. These are also the services, they are helping the humanity, they are helping the human race. However, these services are not taxed. Another example is the services provided by the religious institutions. If you have read your beloved M. Lakshmikant, you must have been aware of the fact that institutional which are run by the religious purposes or the temples, mosques, churches are not taxed in India under the fundamental rights. However, so certain fines, penalties, certain fees can be imposed on that. However, that is a different matter altogether. But these are the certain kind of services which are excluded from the GST. On the other hand, if we talk about the goods including the live fish, fish which is captured by the fishermen across India, fresh fishes, fresh milk, okay, ginger, garlic, these are the many other goods and goods which are excluded or not included in the GST. Supplies that attract nil rate of taxation or the 0% of taxation include cereals, fresh fruits and vegetables which you buy every day from the groceries. Those vegetables and fruits are not taxed under GST. Natural honey, salt, and other things. And lastly, we have, along with the above, the petroleum or the crude petroleum, high speed diesel, petrol, natural gas, aviation turbine fuel, and finally, the electricity and alcohol are excluded from the GST. Now, before concluding this discussion, I want to give you an important difference between 0% taxation and complete exclusion. Now, petroleum and alcohol is completely excluded from the GST. On the other hand, there are certain items on which there is 0% taxation. At the end of the time, as a consumer, you must be thinking that the both are same. Excluded from GST means that taxation is there, but this taxation is not as per the rules of GST. For example, the petrol prices in Rajasthan or the petrol prices in Odisha are different because they are out of the GST. Taxation is there, but it is different. It is not unified under the GST. On the other hand, 0% taxation means they are under the GST, but taxation is zero. So the product is paid or the product is bought without any taxation. So if you are buying salt from the market and you see that there is 0% taxation on this, it means it is under the GST, but government is not taking any money. On the other hand, petroleum or the alcohol things are outside the GST, but the government is taking tax on that. And lastly, who is exempted from the GST? All those businesses which have turnover up to 20 lakh, that is below 20 lakh, are exempted from the GST registration. So the barber who is sitting under the tree, the cobbler, or the one who is providing the rickshaw services, they are exempted from GST. So these are the poor people who are not included in the GST at all.
With this discussion in place, let us now move to the next article for the day. This article appeared on page 6th of Delhi edition Hindu newspaper in the section of the editorials. The article says that Supreme Court has allowed Madhya Pradesh to implement 14% of extra reservation for the other backward classes in the local self-government bodies and will notify the same in the upcoming local body elections and in the extension of 23,263 villages. Now, why such an order has been offered by Supreme Court in India right now? What is the basis of this order? How it has been defined in the constitution? What are the real issues? What happened in the past? And what are the basic constitutional provisions in this regard will be the focus of our discussion. The relevance of this article is straightforward, as it is from the core concepts of the polity. Reservation remains an important task for your prelims and the mains examination. So from the prelim perspective, we will go through the important articles which are highlighted from the Indian Constitution. As far as mains is concerned, so we will go into the specific areas from where reservation related or questions related to the vulnerable sections could be put up in the examination. So why such an order has been passed by the Supreme Court now? Supreme Court has argued that the reservation which is being provided in the local bodies by the Madhya Pradesh government is meeting the triple test criteria which was highlighted by the court in 2010 judgment. Secondly, even if the reservation is forwarded by the Madhya Pradesh government, it will not extend the 50% of the overall reservation given to the reserved category in the local bodies. Now the point is what the opposition parties have to say. Now they have argued that despite the best effort of the Madhya Pradesh government, they could not provide the reservation closer to 27%, which is the basic criteria for various posts in central and the state government jobs. Now what is the triple test condition which was the basis for the favoring of Supreme Court to the Madhya Pradesh government's order? The triple test condition was highlighted by the Supreme Court in Krishnamurthy judgment of 2010. As per this condition, a state commission must be created to conduct a contemporaneous, rigorous empirical inquiry into the nature, implications of backward quota in local bodies within the state. Well, it simply means that there will be a data collection by a specific commission in the state to check political backwardness of OBCs. The second condition under the triple test says that a specific proportion of reservation required to be provisioned local body wise in light of the recommendation of that commission. It simply means that whatever reservation they are providing, that should be provided with respect to the each local body and not on the basis of each state. It simply means that there might be some district where the population of OBC is high. There might be other districts where the population of OBC is low. So the reservation should be provided in that manner and not the one size fits all approach. The third highlight was that reservation must not exceed the overall 50% of the seats. It simply means that if the state want to give the reservation to the OBCs, that should not extend the 50% of the reserved seats. Now let's go into the background. Previously, the state of Madhya Pradesh has constituted a 3-member commission which is based on the first category. As you can see, this is the first category, and on this category Madhya Pradesh has created a 3-member commission, and this commission extended the backwardness of OBC to quantify in the state of Madhya Pradesh. As per the recommendation of this commission, there is the OBC population in the state is 48%, and the commission has recommended a quota of 35% at the Panchayat level. But if 35 becomes the normal condition as per the recommendation of this commission, then the issue will create, as this overall reservation would extend the 50% criteria highlighted by the Supreme Court in the third condition. Supreme Court previously has laid down that all states must set up this commission to collect the contemporaneous data for the backwardness of a particular community. Now Madhya Pradesh has already done that, calling for the 48% of the population to be OBC. This was highlighted in Krishnamurthy judgment delivered in 2010 by a constitutional bench of 5 judges, where they have clearly put out that there should not be an easy give out of political reservation to the population. They highlighted that the political participation are not the same character as a barrier that limit the access to the employment or education. Socio-economic backwardness does not necessarily coincide with the political backwardness. This was the major highlight of the Supreme Court judgment in 2010. It simply means that reservation in the political arena to the other backward classes should not be highlighted on the basis of only backwardness, because it is very hard to classify, it is very hard to identify what political backwardness is all about. So what court has to say? They advised the state previously to reconfigure their reservation policy with respect to the constitution, and they have highlighted that Article 243D clause 6 and 243T clause 6 need not to be necessarily in coterminous with the socio-economic backward classes highlighted under Article 15 clause 4 and 16 clause 4. It simply means that these two, which are also the fundamental rights given to the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes along with other backward classes, should not become a similar norm to what powers have been provided under these two articles of Panchayati Raj institution. Now, if you go through these two articles, you will find that the constitution provide the autonomy to the states to create legislation that will provide or that will extend the benefits of reservation to the other backward classes. Now, constitution only provides reservation to scheduled caste and scheduled tribes with respect to their population. It also provides reservation to the women with a category of 1/3 or 33%. However, it leaves on the choice of a particular state to whether they want to extend the reservation to the other backward classes or not. That is the reason why reservation given to the other backward classes in the local government has remained a matter of political tussle as well as vote bank politics. Now, what these articles have to say? The articles which are given for the reservation of OBCs in Panchayati Raj institution comes under Article 243DC, which says that nothing in this part shall prevent the legislation of the state, simply state legislation, from making any provision for the reservation of the seats to the backward classes of the citizen. It simply means that state legislations have power to provide reservations to OBC in Panchayati Raj institutions or urban local bodies. Now, the constitution provides for that reservation. States, if they make a policy, they are constitutionally correct. But the state should follow the norm of triple test highlighted by the Supreme Court in order to avoid any kind of tussle on the judicial front. Now, what remains the major issue? Now, whatever Supreme Court has done on the pretext of providing the welfaristic approach to the lower political government. Now, the point is, what remains the contemporaneous data may lead to the separate OBC list. So, a particular community under the other backward class may have politically backwardness in one district, or they may be politically empowered in the other. So, highlighting the quantum of a qualitative feature, that is empowerment in terms of polity, remains the matter of concern. The second important issue is the same community may be represented in one list or may be excluded in the other list. So, the inclusion and exclusion error also makes the issue more troublesome. With this discussion in place, let us now move to the next article for the day. This article appeared on page 12 of Delhi edition Hindu newspaper and talks about an important element of India's art and culture and the cultural history. On the basis of the security concern, Archaeological Survey of India has closed down the visit to Aurangzeb's tomb situated in the district of Aurangabad in Maharashtra. Now, keeping controversy aside, it is important for the students who are preparing for the civil services to understand some of the elements of art and culture from ancient, medieval to modern times. So, from that perspective, we are going to study this architectural feature of Indo-Islamic culture that was in prominence during the medieval India. Now, the tomb of Aurangzeb. The duration of Aurangzeb was 1618 to 1707. He was the last influential Mughal and sixth in the lineage. This tomb is situated in Kudlabad, which is part of Aurangabad district in Maharashtra. The architectural feature of this tomb is contrasting with that of the other Mughals, such as Humayun's tomb or the tomb of Shah Jahan at Taj Mahal. The first reason of difference is that the tomb of Aurangzeb is situated in the complex dargah or a shrine of Sheikh Zainuddin. Sheikh Zainuddin was the spiritual and religious teacher to Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb. The second important feature of this tomb is that his graveyard has been covered with soil, no extensive architecture has been used, and in that soil herbs have been grown. There is a use of red sandstone, which also remains the hallmark of Mughal architecture, also seen in Delhi's Red Fort, Jama Masjid at Delhi, or even the Red Fort at Agra. Lord Curzon, one of the famous and notorious Governor General of British India, later covered the side with marble, which was also another important element of Mughal architecture, and surrounded the tomb with a pierced marble screen or the Jali system. The fourth important element of this tomb, which makes it different from the other, is that there is no roof which is attached to the tomb. There is no covering which is there on the emperor's tomb. As you can see in this image, this is the basic tomb. There is no covering on the tomb, and the Jali work which you are seeing in the marble was given by Lord Curzon. As far as Sheikh Zainuddin is concerned, his real name was also Hussain Shiraki. He belonged to the 14th century and he was a Sufi saint of Deccan, India, and belonged to the Chishti order. Chishti order is one of the Sufi order apart from the other three, which includes the Qadris, Naqshbandi and Sohrawardi. He was born in Shiraz, which is situated in Iran, and later on he settled in Aurangabad, Maharashtra. He became a spiritual leader to a number of Muslim emperors, including the Nizams of Hyderabad. He was a contemporary to Muhammad bin Tughlaq and the Firoz Shah Tughlaq. So, this kind of question has already been repeatedly asked by the UPSC in the prelim examination, so try to have focus on this. With this discussion, please let us now move to the last article for the day. This article was published on page 11th of Delhi edition Hindu newspaper and talks about an important upcoming international event where India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is going to take participate. Narendra Modi will soon take participation in the Quad meeting that has been scheduled in Japan and will occur in the next week. As per this article, he is going to meet the US President Joe Biden, Japanese President Fumio Kishida, and the Australian President Scott Morrison. The leaders are going to discuss the talk of Russian war on Ukraine, the impact of 3 months Western sanctions on Russia, and they will only going to discuss the matter that India is the only nation from the Quad that has not joined the sanctions which were imposed on Russia. Now, this is also an international diplomatic concern for India on one hand, because India has not outrightly condemned Russia, or it has not taken any negative steps or repercussions on Russia's move towards Ukraine. India over the past has also increased its intake of Russian oil because of its falling reliance on Iran, given the sanctions that were imposed by the Western world. As India is not a member to the NATO, India also remains one of the important opposite force while discussing the Ukraine-Russia issue. The another issue which is going to be highlighted in the meeting would be India's ban on wheat export, which have been criticized by the US as well as the G7 countries. The other area of cooperation would consist the vaccine distribution for fighting the COVID, critical technologies, cyberspace, space technologies, climate change, and other related concepts. So over the past 4-5 years, it has been seen that Quad has improved its membership quality, right from being a small group which only talks about the maritime issues as well as the free and open trade, has now moved towards more international issues that highlight their own mutual interest. Now, we have already discussed the Quad in length and breadth, so those students who have already seen us discussing the Quad in the previous DNS can take it as a revision, or those students who have just started the preparation and would like to know basics about the Quad, well, this article is there for you. Quad also stands for Quadrilateral Security Dialogue, and Quad here simply means 4. And 4 here also includes the members, which are the United States of America, India, Australia, and Japan. The basic objective for which it was created is free, open, and prosperous, inclusive Indo-Pacific region, as all these countries have one or the other stake in Indo-Pacific region, which includes the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. It was conceived as a basic idea during 2007 ASEAN meet, where the then Prime Minister Shinzo Abe was the first one to pitch this idea for a quadrilateral grouping. It was in 2017 when the first official talks began between these 4 countries for the purpose. Quad is known for a basic alliance for maritime democracy, as all these members are the democratic countries and they are known to maintain important meetings, semi-regular summits, information exchanges, as well as military drills, in which Malabar exercise remains the most important drill. As far as previous summit is concerned, well, it was organized in March 2021 in virtual format. The reason was the global pandemic of COVID, so the leaders decided to keep it a virtual format. The leaders vowed to strive for the Indo-Pacific region that is free, open, inclusive, anchored by democratic values and unconstrainedly by coercion, sending an apparent message to China. Because China has been criticized for being neo-imperialist and expanding its strength in Central Asia, Southeast Asia, as well as the larger Indo-Pacific. With this discussion in place, now we come to the last section for today's Daily News Simplified, that is question of the day. So the answer to yesterday's question was option B, that is, out of these 4 important statements given related to the ethanol blending in fuel, the first one is wrong. Ethanol blending increases the fuel economy of the vehicle. This remains the incorrect statement. All the other 3 were correct. Today's question of the day is, which of the following under Indian Constitution does not relate to reservations provided towards the weaker section of Indian society. Your options are as follows. Option A, fundamental rights. Option B, Panchayati Raj institutions. Option C, urban local bodies. And option D, citizenship. So find out the right answer and do comment in the comment box. That's all for today's Daily News Simplify. Thank you.